All right, so in the last video, we talked about how to analyze your practice tests so that you can organize it into whether you just didn't know the content or whether you need to increase your test taking strategy. And in this video, we're going to start with the content itself, and I'm going to discuss how to plan your studying when you start your studying to maximize the amount of content that you can fit into your brain to use for the test. So, starting with the study plans, I do not recommend any of the study plans that I see online that are outlined to study to study at specific times, different subjects. I think these plans are way too generic. They're not individualized. They're not tailored to your strengths and weaknesses. They oversimplify what you should be studying. And overall, it's just not going to bring things forward enough either, because you're spending a whole week. Some of these plans recommend a whole week of musculoskeletal without looking at anything else. In which case, I think you'll forget a lot of the other stuff. So this is one I saw online. Here's another one, very arbitrary, just kind of saying 4 hours of neuro here, 4 hours of musculoskeletal here, and it's planned out all the way until the test. And there's no way that anyone can justify to me that in 7 weeks on a Tuesday, you should be studying neuro for 4 hours. You just don't know that yet. It has to be individualized to what you need at that time. You have to trust yourself to go with your gut a little bit more and not use this piece of paper as a sense of security. Okay? So then what do you do? So how do you start your studying then? I say you should make a plan, because obviously this is a big test, but don't make it longer than 7 days. Make it between 3 to 7 days at a time, because then you're seeing what you're retaining, what you're not, where you need to go. You can adjust it a lot easily. I don't know. You can adjust it. You can adjust it to accommodate for what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what you're retaining and what you're not. And I highly recommend that if you're going to do this, you every day. It's not going to be this simple, but when you start, I would start like this. You pick 2 topics, okay? Topic 1 is something you enjoy, something you're looking forward to, okay? Something you want to learn more about. Topic 2 is going to be something requiring memorization and repetition. You don't necessarily dislike it, but it's something that's just going to, for whatever reason, it's just a lot of material. It's going to require a lot of memorization and repetition. For me, what I enjoyed was cardiac physiology, and what I knew was going to require a lot of memorization and repetition, because I didn't know it well at all, was the wound care dressings. So here's my example of how I started. Day 1, not including the practice exam and my analysis of it. So the thing that I liked for day 1 was cardiac physiology, got me excited to get going and studying. And the thing that I knew would require repetition was the wound care dressings. And I kind of kept this technique going for the first week or so. My first plan was just 3 days. So I picked things, day 2, the thing that required a lot of repetition was pediatric milestones. I knew that I was going to have to repeat that a lot. And when I was first studying these things, like wound care and pediatric milestones, I was extremely overwhelmed. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to retain it. And that's why I think that I'm happy I did it early, because I was able to repeat it so much that after 5 to 6 weeks, it finally, became second nature, and I started to get it. So I really recommend starting with something you like and something that's going to require repetition. It's human nature to push away the thing that we don't want to study till later, like wound care, for example, but you have to force yourself to be a little uncomfortable and start with something that you don't know that well, okay, and dive in there, because it's going to be worth it in the long run, because it's going to start to click when you repeat it enough. So the next one is an example over 6 days during your second week of studying, between day 8 and day 13. So again, I was sticking with something I liked. I liked, as you can see, I kind of like pathology, learning about strokes, CHF, COPD, restrictive lung disease, spinal cord and vestibular. And I was still putting something new every day at this point for something that required a lot of repetition. Motor learning, the different stages, I kind of forgot that from school. Neuroterminology, all the agnosias and all that stuff. Amputee gait deviations were something I knew would require a lot of repetitions. And I won't read the rest of the slide to you, but as you can see, as time went on, I started to review and repeat more and more information. That part got bigger. Okay, so just to illustrate that, as you can see, I studied the stroke sites on day 8. Day 9, made sure to review it again. Day 12, made sure to review it again. And that's really important. And just another example, as I said, wound care was something that was tough for me, so I made sure just to throw it in there when I was reviewing on random days, just to make sure that it was sticking. I didn't necessarily take hours to look it over. I just made sure to go through it again, even though everything in my body was telling me don't do it because it required energy to study something I didn't like. You have to work through that when you're studying for this exam. So here's an example of a 3-day plan a lot later in the studying, day 40 to 42. And I just wanted to illustrate that at this point, a lot of it should be review and repeat. Obviously, you're still going to, pretty much every day up until the last week, you're still going to be learning something new. But at this point, the bulk of the studying is going to be reviewing and repeating the information. Okay, so this is an important slide. I wanted to compare and contrast the generic study plan with my plan, because I think a lot of people may still want to use the generic plan because it's comfortable, it feels safe. One, other people are using it. It's kind of organized. You're going through, let's say, musculoskeletal over the course of 7 days, so you'll just go through the therapy ed chapter and memorize page by page. It feels good, like you're accomplishing something, but the carryover is going to be poor. Okay? With my plan, it's going to feel a little more unorganized. It's going to feel random because you're going from chapter to chapter. You might be studying stroke the same day you're studying wound care, the same day you're doing some pediatrics. So it's harder to keep track of. You might be flipping through chapter to chapter, but just like with motor learning, as we learned in school, if you randomize things and you make it variable, you'll have increased carryover and increased long-term retaining. And I think that's really why my plan will help you kind of retain information in the long term, although it might feel a little more uncomfortable at that time.